So Disney Lorcana Challenge Richmond is just around the corner, and I'm so excited to be a part of the broadcast team once again. I can't tell you what a dream these events are to do. It's very exciting. I love every single one. And even though it's a lot of fun, it is also a lot of work, both during the broadcast and leading up to it, because there's so much prep that goes into it. And I thought that this time, leading into Richmond, I thought it would be fun to give you all a look at how I'm preparing for this challenge, how I usually prepared for challenges, and maybe it'll give some tips and tricks to anybody looking to get into broadcasting or commentating themselves. So here's what I do. So I took a while, tried to organize my thoughts, and I've boiled everything down to about 6 things. And number 1, of course, is study. But before I talk about how I study and prep, I want to take a second to talk about my overall philosophy of broadcasting, because I think it's really important to give you the lens through which I view things. I think that a lot of people get caught up in the education piece of broadcasting and think that that's the most important thing. And I do think it's incredibly important, but I think education serves something else, and that's ultimately to create emotion. I think that people oftentimes forget what you say during broadcasting, but they always remember how you made them feel. So the purpose of match commentary is to make them feel excited or sad or inspired or hopeful. All of those things that you are feeling watching or that the players are feeling, you want to convey that emotion to the audience. And you can do that a number of different ways, which I can talk about in a different video. To create emotion, what you're trying to do is tell stories. And it's not just the story of the match or the story of a particular play, but it's the stories of the players who are playing, the story of the tournament, the story of the meta. All of these things are stories, and that's how you create emotion. But to tell stories, the education matters a lot. It is the foundation on which everything is built. And so, of course, you want to study the meta, the cards, the decks as much as you possibly can. And here's how I do it. The first is pretty obvious. There's all sorts of information available online. Tournament reports, which talk about which decks are performing well. There's deck guides out there. There's YouTube videos. There's all sorts of great content out there. And so in taking a lot of that is obviously step 1. Obviously, I prioritize what I'm taking in. There's so much out there you could be studying for days and days and days and not consume it all, but you want to make sure that you're hitting each deck. You want to make sure that you're hitting the big tournaments to see kind of what the flow of the meta is and which decks are performing well and why they're performing well. But to augment what I find online, I like to reach out to well-known players, well-known deck builders, people who are performing well during a particular season, and to do interviews with them behind the scenes. Now, I always record these so I can go back and review. Sometimes I'll package them and send them out if the player says that that's okay. And our deck guide series that you've seen, the most recent one with Josh Pult on the Circle of Life deck, is an example of how I'll take these interviews and package them for you all to see. I think it's great that these get out there. It's great for the player, and it's also good for me because it forces me to watch back that interview over and over and over again to kind of internalize some of the lessons and the tips that that player is talking about. And these players are also so gracious with their time, oftentimes spending hours with me to walk me through specific lines, decks, builds, or the meta, and I can't thank them enough. But it's something that I think is incredibly important because as you're watching a match, you want to know how the players are thinking, what they're looking for, and you can only figure that out so much without talking to them and getting inside their heads. You know, it's a mistake to think that as a broadcaster, you can be as prepared for the event as a lot of these players because they're putting in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours on these decks, focusing on very specific builds. So as a broadcaster, you can study a lot and become good at some of these decks, but it's very, very hard to become as good at particular builds as certain players are who have been tinkering with them for weeks or months. And so, again, getting inside their heads is incredibly important. And then if I have particular gaps in knowledge, I will target specific metaphys or deck guides. Sometimes this costs a little bit of money, but it really is a great place to get information and some very specific lines from players who are specializing in decks. And the last thing I'll do if I have time is there are some Discord servers out there where I can hang out and watch people play. I don't have time to play as much as I would like sometimes, but at the very least, if I have 30 minutes before going to bed and I don't want to bust out the webcam, I can sit and watch other players play and listen to them talk through their lines. Step 2 is practicing, and by that I mean practicing broadcasting. Now, for some of you out there, I know this can be tricky if you don't have local tournament scenes to plug into that are broadcasting games, and there's ways to do it on the side I'll talk about in a moment, but for me, I've been lucky enough to get plugged into some bigger tournament scenes like CCS or PPG, as well as some other things that I can do digitally like the ICL, and it's really, really good for me to do in-person events because There's something that you're trying to do when you're in person that you can't do digitally, and that is go out onto the floor, talk to the players, gather those stories, interview those players, and to bring those stories into the booth. And there's really no substitute for doing in-person broadcasting, not only because you can get out on the floor, but also because it allows you to build up chemistry and practice working with the commentator right beside you. There is some body language and some ways that you can interact with people when they're in the chair next to you that you can't do when you're commentating online. And that's not to say that online commentary isn't good practice, but it really is not a perfect substitute for doing it in person. So for me, going into DLCs, I honestly don't know sometimes whether or not I'm going to be hired in advance, but I try to, just in case, every single season plug into CCS, PPG, some of these big events, so that in the event I get to go do a DLC, then I already have a lot of reps under my belt in a particular meta. I find it invaluable. Now, one thing you can do if you can't make it to a local tournament or there's nobody broadcasting around you is to watch matches on YouTube, but mute the sound and commentate over it. You can even record yourself, like on your phone or something, commentating over a match and then listen to yourself back. It's not an ideal way to practice, but it's a way to practice, and it's something that I've done occasionally. And I don't know, if you're into commentary, it's something you can give a try. The third thing I do is try to gather stories. And this is something that I think is an underappreciated part of broadcasting sometimes. Because when you're doing commentary, again, the storytelling really, really matters. And there's a lot of prep you can do ahead of time for an event by figuring out who's there, what are their stories, what is their tournament background, are there new players there who are playing in their very first event, are there Golden Mickey winners who are going to be there, what's the story of the store or the venue that you're at, or the tournament organizer, have they done tournaments before, how did they run, how many players are there now compared to before. There's all sorts of things that you can figure out about who's playing there, who the local heroes are, who the big players are, and who the newbies are, that allow you to create a narrative around an event that is really kind of fun. Now, this is a lot harder, or I don't know, harder and easier for bigger events because there's so much more to learn for a 2,000 person DLC, but it also provides more stories that you can gather and glean because there's so many new players. So one thing I try to do is online, I'll try to figure out by posting publicly who's going to the event, try to make a list of Golden Mickey winners for notable players, figure out their tournament finishes. I'll even put out player surveys, and I'm going to put one out here shortly for Richmond, where anybody who's going can fill out information to give me some biographical data on them. And that way, if they come up on stream, or if I just find an interesting story out there from a player, I can bring that into the booth. It's really, really amazing when somebody gets picked for round one. Maybe there's somebody that nobody has heard of because it's their first feature match, and I have some sort of information on them, where they're from, who their favorite players are, what their favorite ink colors are, or some other neat tidbits so that when I'm talking about them on camera, I can give that information to the audience. It makes the match so much more fun to follow when you know who it is on stream and where they're from. The other thing in terms of stories is taking a look at the story of the meta as well. There is definitely an arc that happens for different decks in the meta where they become popular and then drop off as people figure them out, or maybe new decks pop up. And so understanding the flow of the meta during a season is also really, really important because it allows you to talk about the history of each deck in that particular format. And for Richmond, it's going to be super fun because this is going to be a fairly old meta. We're going to be fairly close to Winterspell coming out, and so we have lots of history in the Whispers meta to look at to kind of talk about where it's come from and where it's going. The fourth thing seems kind of silly, but it's wardrobe and accessories. There are various ways to tell stories and to convey joy and emotion through a broadcast, one of which is what you're wearing. At times, I have cosplayed, or rather Disney-bound Mickey Mouse with a tuxedo. I did that at Worlds. I've also bound Milo Thatch at a particular event. Shout out to Katie from Lore Keepers Inn for inspiring that. I wear shoulder buddies. I have different pins. I also wear bracelets from the Lorcana community that people have given me to kind of bring the community into the broadcast. All of these things are fun, and they provide little nuances and nuggets that people watching the broadcast can point to and get a little bit of joy out of, whether it's their favorite character on my shoulder, or seeing a bracelet that they gave me, or recognizing a Disney bound. And so figuring out what to wear so that it is, so that it's fun is another way to bring just a little bit of magic to a broadcast. The fifth thing I do kind of stems from some of the other stuff I've talked about, and that is create my study guides and references. For every single event that I do, I have spreadsheets with data and things that I found. I have Metafy guides that are sitting on standby if I want to look up particular insights from certain players. I also have Google Docs that list tournament results. I also have another sheet talking about notable players who are there. There's all sorts of references that I have on hand in order to allow me to tap into stories and to tap into data. The human memory is a powerful thing, but it can't contain everything. And so even though I try to have everything right there, right at the front of my mind palace so I don't have to go exploring too deep, sometimes it helps to have references there that I can refer to after matches. And frankly, during matches sometimes, because I will have references on hand that I can look at to pull out nuggets, whether math details or who knows, when I'm actually broadcasting. And so with all the prep that I do, I want to have all of that knowledge readily available so that I can bring it to bear at the perfect moment to create a compelling narrative. And the sixth thing I wanted to highlight, even though it's last, is also one of the most important, and that is chemistry with the other broadcasters. When you're part of a broadcast team, you are truly a member of the team. You're just a cog in the machine. And how you interact with the other people on the broadcast team is incredibly important. What role you occupy when you're in the booth next to them, how you play off each other. Do you have certain bits that you want to do? Do you know how they broadcast so that you can draw certain things out of them when you're broadcasting with them, asking them about things that you know they're experts in? So one of the things I try to do is look at the other broadcasters, look at some of their work, and then talk to them ahead of time, interact with them, hang out with them, have fun, hang out on stream with them in order to generate that chemistry so that when you go to the event, you are truly a member of a team and you all feel like a unit rather than just a bunch of individuals working together. Any successful broadcast is truly a team effort. So overall, as we get ready for Richmond, these are some of the things that I'm going to be doing to get myself ready. And to be honest, I actually started this process 2 months ago with the start of the Whispers meta, already starting to gather data, dig into things, gather stories, talk to people. All of that is an ongoing process, and I'm well into it now as we get ready for DLC Richmond. Broadcasting anything, whether it's a local tournament or a Disney Lorcana challenge, is such a huge responsibility because the tournament organizer, the players, everybody is trusting you with the story of their event, and they're trusting you to broadcast and blast out to the world what's truly going on and to highlight the best of what they're bringing to bear. So I take it very, very seriously, and I hope this provides you just a little bit of insight into what I do to get ready. If you're looking to get into commentary or broadcasting, don't hesitate to reach out or ask me for any tips, and I hope this was somewhat useful. I'm sure that I missed plenty of things, and as we get closer, perhaps I'll do another video giving you some exact specifics for this event, who I talked to and what I did to get ready, and maybe that'll help. With that, are you going to Richmond? What are you looking forward to seeing? Are you going? Are you playing? Send me a note. Let me know. Leave a note down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you either there or on the broadcast.